Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. My guest today, creator of Noah Aowen. I know he told me previously, but you might say that one. So Aowen, is it?
Noah Aon.
Aon, yeah. I didn't do that justice. Yeah, so
No
give me a virtual slap on that one. You're a certified Wim Hof instructor, successful entrepreneur for wellness, spirituality, and entrepreneurship. A DJ producer, and I was actually listening to your stuff on Spotify. I enjoyed it. It's actually very nice. You're promoting kind of healthy happiness and harmony through innovative practices like breathwork, meditation, and dark retreats. And you're kind of got a major focus on biohacking. So originally from Czech, but now kind of digital nomad. So please welcome Pavel Stuchlik. I probably didn't do that justice either.
No worries. Names are interesting, right? It's a label that we're given, and sometimes cringing because of it. Because being from Czech and having such a odd last name, it's always interesting. Going on the other side of the world in US or any English speaking countries. But no worries. So it's Pavel Stuchlik, and I'm super happy and grateful to be here and speak about some depthness of what is life, right? How can we go one step a notch forward?
No, absolutely. And to be honest with you, like I'm looking forward to this with all that you've done, and even the dark retreats and everything. But I always want to kind of know your own journey, because usually something happens to kind of get you down this path, and you might let people know what was your path.
Absolutely. So, I've lived probably 5 lives by the time I was 30. And it's interesting because I think I did all of this for really defining my why and defining my purpose in early stages. And so since I was born, I was always intrigued by spirituality, mysticism, and really questioning everything, questioning society, questioning teachers at school. Like I just wasn't a typical person that was willing to settle for less. And I think through all of these questions, it led me on a journey through self-transformation. And this journey started quite early. I actually grew up with shaman from Siberia in Czech Republic. And my mom brought that as a teaching for us when we were growing up. And so I thought it was weird and crazy at that age and at that time. But little that I knew that it was this foundation of understanding that we're so much more than a physical flesh made up of what we were doing, through our societal norms. And quite frankly, that's really what was getting me into depression, mental health issues, anxieties, because I wasn't living off my highest good. And so I went around the world and traveled for quite some time, extensively, moving from different guru to shaman to teacher, and really in the search of what is love, what is life that we're living in, and what is the true meaning of health. Because I used to be really depressed. I had a chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr. I was literally sick every 2 weeks, and it led me into having suicidal thoughts when I was about 18 years old. And it was so much of darkness that I continued to have revolving, that I knew that there was another way. And so through this pain, through all of this suffering, anytime I heard that somebody has an answer, I would follow the calling and I would move it into action. And it wasn't until about 8 years ago that I went into darkroom for the first time. And I came in there as a busy entrepreneur. I used to open Orange Theory fitness locations all over the country. And I had this whole, business hat of success and growth and beyond. And yet I hit the same burnout phase as when I was younger, even though I had all the successes that I, would, want. And so I go in there, and it wasn't until day 7 that I just start purging and crying and moving into this beautiful state of bliss that I haven't, accessed before. And in that moment, I was like, I just got it. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I keep on chasing myself for money, for all of the flush? That is what's making me unhappy. And essentially, I created Noah Aeon, was out of the dark room. The vision was so clear. Noah means movement. Aeon is all or none. And it symbolizes duality. And so my whole life, I played ping pong, highs and lows and good days and bad days, aka Noah or Aeon. And I always say I had this dark side of me, this dark voice that was telling me, drink alcohol and be toxic and do things that are harmful. And then the other voice that was drinking cold pressed juices and wanting to be this healthy person. And I was so sick and tired of living in this polarity that I wanted to come back to harmony, peace, balance, health. And that's what that middle line symbolizes as to how do we come back into that path. So I walked out of the dark room and I basically had this vision that I can't keep all of this knowledge and wisdom for myself. I have to move into service. And that's a natural progression, right? In life, we're either in self-mastery when we're learning, or we want to share this with others because we came here to Earth to learn and exchange gifts. And I wanted to start exchanging it. And that's what led me into what I'm doing today. We're teaching retreats, workshops, immersive experiences all across the world, with about 150 events a year, which is insane, but that's how many people are hurting in this world, and we continue being in that service.
Like, because I've heard, I was listening to another show that you were on, and I mean, I was doing very well, and I lost everything, and I think you had a similar journey. I'd like you to touch on that, but also your headspace and how you kind of overcame that, because a lot of people go through that and they don't actually, they kind of stay down, and it's nice to kind of know there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, and it's so hard to see it at times, because in my life, when I decided to move into service, I've made millions of dollars prior to that, and I lost it all within a very short period of time. And essentially, I said no to money, and because I had this, hate for it, but not realizing, money is just another energy, and abundance in general is something that is a birth-given right for us. But it's how we make it and who we are becoming in the process. And are we losing ourselves, or are we gaining more of a wealth, true wealth on every level? And, before, for me, I lost relationships through this. I lost myself through this. And through this chasing, it just led me further apart until I found this, new integration, new passion, new purpose, and legacy, as I call it. And, when we identify what this is, when we live by it, and when we face all of the demons, so to speak, that are in the way of obstacles to our true potential, life really becomes easy, and life becomes amazing, and life becomes full of experiences that come from love, not fear anymore. And I think that's what took me so long to figure out, that like, I don't have to learn through the gutter. I don't have to, keep on having losses and negative relationships and all of the roller coaster that life sometimes brings us. And so, today I learned through love. I have this spark in my energy field that is just driven so much more outside of who I am, because it's for all of us, that we reflect the best of us.
Excellent. I mean, like you've mentioned, how successful you were, and then you lost it. And now obviously you're extremely successful now with all the different things you're doing, and you're more in alignment. And like what I've noticed with some people, friends that I know as well, like their total focus is on money, but I can see where they lack stuff in other ways. How do people have balance but try to get the money in as well? Because there's like a guilt thing, or they feel like, if I do this, I lose out on that. But there is a way of doing harmony. And I think a lot of people are suffering financially at the moment. So if you could kind of touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I think especially men are more supporters, right, in that way. So it's inherent in us that what we are obsessed by sometimes, right, on the other side is the success through money. And so if we think about the way we spend time, there is really about three main like fundamentals. There is time with yourself that a lot of people are lacking, which is one of the main reasons why we're so, disharmonized. Then there is time with others, friends, families, relationships. And then we've got times on our career or work, and I like to call it a life's mission. And at the different stages of life, we're going to be focused on one or the other more. To give you an example, if a woman goes into a maternity leave, right, her main focus is going to be that family tree, versus a man, right, would be main focus on the life's mission. Now, what I found through this is that we operate on three different levels if we simplify it. And there's that individual consciousness, which is yourself, the me, which is made up of your physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. And, this is almost like a cliche, right? Like body, mind, soul, emotions. And in so many ways, like that's actually where the meat is. That's where the beautiful lessons are. Because if you think about life, it constantly gives you feedback. So there is this feedback loop that we have on all of the different levels of reality. And whatever it is, your mind, right, the type of thoughts you're having, the types of emotions you're feeling, or it's your physical health, something very simple as how's your energy, how's your sleep, how's your temple, the body temple doing? Because if on any of these levels, there's something that's disruptive, that this is something to look at. Now, back to the whole layers of this. So you've got individual consciousness, which is the me. Then you've got the collective consciousness, which is the we. And this is your environment, also relationships, the people that you spend time with. And then you've got the supra consciousness, which is the be, which I call it when you zoom out into, beyond us, like when you look at us as a group, but as a solar system or as a universal, laws that we're all bonded to. It just kind of gives you a micro and macro cycles in which we operate. Now, majority of our life we spend in doing and we spend in our thoughts. And so in process of this balance, what I've learned is we really have to start questioning what are these thoughts, because justification is one of the highest levels of ego that is playing different tactics on us all throughout life. And so that ego is going to tell you, you have to work harder. You have to, you don't have time for family right now. You don't have time to go work out, because everything is more important in that beta brainwave than, your peace and your stillness. And so what I've learned in this process is there's this beautiful model, be, do, and have. And it's again such a simple thing, but most people live the opposite. They have to have the right resources. They have to have the right partner before they become who they're, claiming to be. And essentially, when you reverse that, you take time for yourself first, in every single day. The first golden hour of the day, I don't see anyone. There's no cell phone. I start the day with just myself. And this is when I do meditation, breath work, visualization. It's that time of deciding, who am I going to be today? Now, the second step is do, right? And that's the action, because without action, right, there's nothing, no results are going to happen. So we still want to, go and go for it. But coming from a place of beingness before we take the steps, before we have the results, as a natural flow of life. Now, when you start the day and you spend it on you, physical exercise, mental health, physical health, it's really just your time. Then you start figuring out that, everything else follows. And so right after that little morning routine I have, I go into a workflow. Usually in between there's kids, right? If you go to school and have to take care of them. And then the workflow, I actually don't really work that much. I work about 5-6 hours per day, but it's fully dedicated time in which I, again, dictate, in a time management as to what I'm being focused on each day. Now, towards in the afternoon, generally I focus on education and creation. We are all creators. And this is so important because a lot of us lose that creativity in life. And maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's just building a booklet, something that interests you, because everybody's passion is different. But I usually spend the afternoons on listening to an audiobook or podcast or write something. And then I would create my own little understanding or book in a Word document from what I'm learning. And so then it kind of starts serving and feeding your thoughts as to what you want to share, with others. Now, throughout the day, I listen to music. Sacred sound and listening and chanting is really crucial. And it's, by the way, this is all part of 8-point luscious lifestyle that I live, and we can touch on that, because how you spend time is what determines the quality of your life, the frequency, the vibration, the state that you're resonating. And to kind of give you this long rundown on this, the most important thing is, when I used to just be chasing myself for the doing, for the money, for the finances, I would constantly be in a beta brainwave, which is the overthinking, overanalyzing, active mind. And monkey brain, to bring it back into our mind, is ruining and running our lives. And so when you slow it down, when you do a little meditation, breath work, exercise, walk, go into nature, you allow your body and your brain to shift into the alpha or more of a theta brainwaves, which is that restorative mind, which is that creative, that flow state like mind that is not that agitated, person anymore. And in the agitation, we can listen to these senses. In the peace and silence and stillness, we can actually hear what is of our highest good. And once you start hearing this and feeling this and listening to this guidance, then you naturally balance out the way you spend time, with whom you spend time, and how you're willing to, give your energy out to the external.
Beautiful. Love it. I've heard you talk about relationships before, and I'd like to, because I think you explained the relationship ones exactly like you just done that, and I think if people can actually heed what you've just said, it's fantastic advice. And the reason that I think that relationship, because with the last craziness in the last 4 years, there's been so much breakups, and due to financial situations, I've heard of so many people are even living in the same house, and there's just hatred there and everything. So I'd like you to kind of touch that. I know it will help somebody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So relationships are a huge piece, and I've failed all of them, prior to this. So just for the record, like, I really used to not do a good job with being a friend, being a partner. I mean, it was all about me. I lived in that me centric holographic bubble, if we call it this way. And, it was just getting me further away from everyone else and myself, which ironically, and again, I think for men don't really like to speak about their emotions and thoughts. And at least for me personally, I would used to avoid it at all costs. And, now with my wife, we use this magical dance in life where we can trust each other to open up to one another. Now, in this process, I've learned that there's about 7 stages that we go through in relationships. And what's really interesting is these stages really help me understand where am I in each relationship to others, so I can kind of rebalance and recalibrate, this next step to it. Now, when you think about relationships, this can apply to any of them. So it doesn't have to be just your romantic relationship. This could be a friendship. This could be a fitness membership. This could also be, you're a company. Let's say you're starting, a new company or working for a company. And first layer is always romance. This is that initial time that you fall in love. There's new excitement, new thing happening in the world. I'm so sorry. Let me quickly. Can you hear the child?
No, you're correct. It's all good to it.
Sorry, our baby. You couldn't hear it. It's okay.
No, I couldn't. And to be honest, it doesn't matter. Keeps it real. It's life. We have families. We have kids. So yeah.
Perfect. I just hear the screaming. Okay. So that's the first one. Now, to give you an example, right? Like this is. I mean, I don't really have to give you example in a romance because we've all been there. And but I'll give you the example of outside of romantic love. Maybe it's a new car. It's a new LLC, new idea of a new yoga membership, right? There's that excited point of time. The second phase is commitment. And this is when we become girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, or we sign a new hire paperwork. We sign in for a new gym. The third phase is broken vase. And this is when you start seeing things that you did not see at the romance phase. And so a simple term would be like, you're acting just like your mother, or you're acting just like your father, or the yoga studio has no showers. So now you can't go to work after because you're sweaty. And it's things that you were like not really seeing, but all of a sudden they start, popping up. Now, the fourth stage is ordeal. And I'm going to sing this. Should I stay or should I go? And essentially what that is, it's a long dragging stage, ups and downs. I love you. I hate you. I want to be in this. I don't want to be in this. And this, for example, this could be a 25 years worth of time that an attorney spends because of security. This could be a doctor that always had this beautiful vision or passion for something, but have been putting it on a back burner because of security, because of finances, because of society, right? And so this is, again, when we start breaking out of, and stretching out of what we really want. And after, 25 years, when you finally lost it, when you can't do it or take it anymore, you go into the fifth stage, which is collapse. Now, in the collapse stage, this is where people either make it or break it. And most people get divorced. They quit their company, right? Maybe it fails, runs out of money. They quit their job. And this is when you just could not take it anymore. Now, the sixth stage is when the magic starts happening. And this is the potential opening to surrender. And when I say potential, it's only for those brave souls that are willing to see themselves for who they are, not for who they are not. Now, this is that time that we finally take the mirror in front of us and we look at ourselves not as what are you doing wrong, what are you need to change, but it's about what am I doing wrong, what am I need to adjust so this person can perceive me for who I am, not for who I am not. And our true nature is not to fight. Our true nature is not to be lost in our thoughts and in all of this drama. But think about it, if we believe our thoughts, if we just continuously are building up these stories of past and future, and we are continuously wanting to keep our monkey brain alive, that's all it is, by the way, right? There's no fight without our egoic minds creating a story. And this is when you let it go. Now, the seventh stage is true love. And this is when you start dancing in life. This is when it's not about me. It's about we. It's about how can we help others? How can we be better for one another? And this is the most beautiful state that you can, achieve because it has no achievement. The irony and the dichotomy of this is that we think we have to do something for that, but yet it's really to undo everything we've known about, this person, this mind, this life, because through undoing and unhooking, you can remember, the glory that you have within your own temple. And so these 7 stages have really like helped me transform where am I going with, and it's really bounded into a soulful love. Like, how can we love from as a soul, not as a mind with conditional ways to love.
So, I mean, with all the different things that, like there's the breath work and everything, but one I want to start off with is maybe the Wim Hof, because I actually met him in Jamaica, did an ice bath, but I mean, it was different because you're coming out and you're at the 30 degrees, so it wasn't as harsh, but I've actually done ice baths in the lakes in Poland, so, and I just feel fantastic from it. So you might just kind of talk about the training and maybe the benefits, because not everybody would be aware of the benefits of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think cold therapy, contrast therapy, and sauna, cold breath. It's literally taking over the world, and it's kind of, it reminds me of like yoga 15 years ago. When everybody started doing yoga or group fitness, like in general, a lot of spinning and beyond. But this is probably one of the most important trends in our human history, because what it does, it helps unlock our mental capacities. So a little bit about Wim Hof. I basically came into the Polish excursion maybe I think it's also 8 years ago, because it was right before my first dark room, which was ironic because I started doing all the breath work in the darkness, which was like my way to get out of the monkey brain. Essentially, I walked into this retreat mildly sick. Like, I had like a kidney pain. I had a fever, wasn't feeling well at all. And I walked out of there after crazy, brutal, cold immersion and exposure for a week, healthy. And I was like, what the hell? How is this, possible? Everything against what we've ever been told. And this is just healed me. And it had such a powerful impact, which, by the way, Wim Hof is made up of 3 different things. There's a mindset, there's a breath work, a specific style of retention breathing. And then there is a cold immersion or cold exposure, which is anything under 12 degrees Celsius. Has been validated that if you spend 2 to 5 minutes at a time in cold immersion, it rebuilds brown fat. And brown fat is these healthy, dense mitochondria, the power supplies of our body, that are fueled by white fat cells. And so essentially it can keep you fit. It can keep your body and metabolism extremely a well-oiled machine. It speeds it up. It increases your dopamine levels. I forget, I think it's like by 300 or 500 times, like insane amount of happiness rush that you feel after, which is amazing for depression, anxieties, and people with mental health issues. It's amazing for your circulation in general and building a strong heart, because you constrict your vessels and vasodilate. There's this, switch in your body having to work extra hard. And when it comes to the breath work, so the breath, I say this all the time, breath is what you're born with, and breath is what you die with. Now, what you do between the first and last breath is what literally determines the quality, the awareness of your life. Because when you lose your breath, you give the power out to the external. When you keep the breath awareness in you, you bring it back home. And there is a lot I have to say in this, because after the Wim Hof breathing, I went on a whole quest of learning about 20 different styles of breathing. And I basically now mix them and interchange them, integrate them into a different, need that we use in our events. And so just a little bit of breathwork 101, because I think this is so crucial. Because if you can understand your breath, then there is no anxiety, there is no depression, there is no fear. Fear does not lie when you are aware of your breath. So first thing I would love to introduce is something called instant presence, and you can do it right now, whatever you are, even driving, whatever you are in the world. There is 3 tools of instant presence that I like to observe as frequently as possible. So tool number 1 is just a slow, deep breath in and out of your nose always. So the gold standard of breathing for longevity, for health, for vitality is always inhale in and out your nose. And it's important so much so that some people even mouth tape at night. So that way they retrain your body to start breathing in and out of nose again, because we've become a society of mouth breathers, over breathers, under breathers, shallow breathers. We have gotten that big element of the life force, wrong. So as you're listening to this, just start focusing on about 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out your nose. And this is something when you're talking, listening, driving, just come back to this as frequently as possible, because it brings that pause from the monkey brain. Your monkey brain is amazing, right? It's a great tool to book your flights, to go places. But if you use it for just continuously talking about what you have messed up in the past and how this person hurt you in the past and what you're going to do in the future, you're missing the point. We're living in this moment right here, right now, and that is nothing but that moment other than what you're thinking in your mind. Now, the second tool of instant presence is body awareness. My favorite question to ask is, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Because again, if you're anywhere else but in your body, you are living somewhere outside of yourself. And we came here to live in your embodiment today. So what I do is I relax all of my muscles. And the best way to do this, there's a variety of exercises which wouldn't be good if you're driving. So I'll keep it simple. Imagine a champagne bubbles bubbling up around your body. And when you inhale for 5.5 seconds, draw in through these bubbles and then exhale out through these bubbles. So that way you're not just breathing in through your nose, you're breathing through every pore of your skin, and you're starting to relax with each exhale into the moment. Because we tend to be tensed up, especially in our shoulders, in our stomach. So the second key to instant presence is you are aware of your whole body, not just being in your mind or somewhere outside of your mind. The third tool of instant presence is, can you pay attention to the stillness and silence underneath the noise? So you could be in the busiest place on earth. You could be in the middle of, subway or a music festival, but you can still be aware of your breath, body awareness, and stillness and silence underneath the sound, underneath the noise. So this is something that I like to practice. It's an instant presence, and it starts bringing the power back to you. Now, this subtle breath is part of just the slow type of breathing. So if you think about the different types of breath, you really just have the deep breathing, which is holotropic breath. It would be Wim Hof breathing. It would be a 2-part breath, rhythmical breath. There's all of these different, styles. And when I say deep breathing, you're over breathing. It's generally really deep, as if you were, running uphill. If you were in a VO2 max, like you're really, working it. And then you've got the subtle breathing, which you can do pretty much at any point of time. And there are, again, different rhythms, because you can literally increase your heart rate variability, decrease your stress, increase or decrease your heart rate based on just your breathing rhythm. Now, the first one, when it comes to the subtle breath, is the gold standard, right? So the 5.5 in, 5.5 out. But especially for my people with anxieties, if you ever feel too anxious, you don't feel right, just simply move it back into this 3-6-9 rhythm. It's the Tesla code I like to use, where you inhale for 3 into your nose, you hold your breath for 6, and then you exhale out your mouth for 9, watching it slowly go. And in about 3 to 5 minutes, it works instantly. It literally brings the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system becomes active from that sympathetic, fight or flight state, which we're chronically living in. The other one is something that we use right before the ice baths. And by the way, ice bath or cold immersion is the best teacher for life. So forget about the physical benefits. Just think about it. Next time somebody crosses in front of your car in front of a red light, you have a choice. You either curse them out and tell them to fuck off, to go away from you, or you keep that cool, right? You be aware of your breath, you be aware of your body, and you use it as every single moment in your life, opportunity to grow, opportunity to let go, opportunity to keep that energy in balance within. And so for this breath, you double the time on exhale. So if you really get worked up, if a neighbor, puts the loud music on again in your house, and you're like, what are they doing again? So for this, you inhale for about 5 seconds in through your nose, and then you exhale for 10 seconds out of your mouth. Now, whatever the length is, you can work this up, longer. You can do a 10-second inhale and then 20-second exhale. But the key is you always double the time on exhale. So you're letting your nervous system know, I'm chill, I'm calm, everything is safe. So you got to follow. And to end this, your mind is the software, your body's the hardware. It's that simple. Your mind directs the body, and the body just follows and listens. So it gives you the instant feedback. So if you tell your body, I'm scared, I'm panicking, I want to, I will not be able to, and I can't, all of this stuff reflects in your emotional and physical body, and it just literally listens to you as the superior mind directs the hardware. And the issue with this is that we trust our computers or mailmen more than we trust our own selves. And when we send a mail to someone, we write the address and we demand that it gets there, or we trust, right, that the mail will be received. And when we send a thought to our body, we literally we disbelieve it. Or if we think positive thinking, we just like thinking but don't actually feel it. But this stuff is felt through, and this stuff is real. Everything has an energy. Everything is constantly listening. And so through these practices, you're going to start being more and more aware of every situation that you're going through.
Excellent. And you mentioned, like, say, the ice bath, 3-5 minutes. And I'm just curious, can it be dangerous kind of going in for 15 minutes, 30 minutes? Because I know some people go into their own little buddy groups and go away and just do it without any training. And the other thing is, I see some people going under the water. And the reason why I'm curious about that one is in the sauna. I've been doing saunas for about 15 years. I've an infrared one at home, and when I go to the gym, there's the other one where you can throw the water on it. And I saw somebody wearing the hat, and I'm like, it was only about over a month ago, and they were like, yeah, protects your brain. And it was like, I used to get really red after the sauna. And it's like, and I'm just curious, should you have a special hat as well when you're going under the water? Can you do damage to your brain when you're at them temperatures?
Well, so as with everything, it's all about the mindset that you have. So if people go into it with the mindset of hypothermia and like the old ways of doing things, yes, you can hurt yourself because that's what you believe in. Now, when it comes to the actual science, so now we can go back into like what we know about this. And what that is that, we know that we're warm-blooded human beings. What that means is that as long as we have enough ATP, enough energy in our bloodstream, we're meant to warm up to whatever temperature we get exposed to in a bits of time of survival. And essentially, hormeosis is the term. It's the short bits of stress that we create a massive, benefits to our body, to our health. And part of the hormeosis is cold therapy or even hot therapy. They both work really well. They each can raise or decrease your body's temperature. So that way your body has to work, that much harder. So it produces all of these beautiful, hormonal responses to become more resilient and stronger. Now, a lot of people, you're right, they want to do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. What we know is that there's no additional benefits to this past the 5-minute mark. So I always say, if somebody just wants to do it for the ego and for the resilientness, I would always question those thoughts, because sometimes we just get lost in the things that don't really matter, right? Like rather than doing it for the things that do matter. And I also want to say is like, don't do it too much, because when you don't sleep or if you are already doing a lot of exercise in the same day, or you're already exposed to a lot of stress, it's a lot of stress to your body. So it can tilt you over and you can get sick, not healthy. And I've actually been there. I did it way too much at the beginning because of the hype and the high that it gives you. And not necessarily the length of it. I just stuck to that, 3 to 5 minute mark. And I would usually do it like 2 to 3 times. So I would go hot and cold and switch that way. But what would happen is my joints would start being inflamed, and I start getting sick from it. And I'm like, the remedy that healed me is now, making me sick. And so again, it goes back to balance and listening to your body. What does it need today? And understanding your lifestyle that has to also be, filled by that.
With the dark retreats thing, because are you actually helping people do the dark retreats as well? And have you ever done another one, or is it something that you do this journey? Because I've heard of, there's people I know, they've done the silence retreat. I've even known one guy, he's done a dark retreat. Nobody's ever said they hated it. Some people have finished it a bit sooner, but they've all kind of felt it's changed their life for the better. But I suppose if we could go a bit deeper into that, and what's the whole purpose of it?
Mm-hmm. So, so I've done it 5 times now. So I spent 50 days in total in darkness with no physical food. And essentially, it became my yearly reset. That's really what it is. And I'll ask you this, when do we get to be without any phone, without any people, without nobody else but our own thoughts? It's almost never.
Very rarely, no.
Barely, right? And maybe you do Vipassana, maybe you do some sort of like a silent retreat. And those are great too, because the biggest issue we have in today's world is we continuously live somebody else's life. We're continuously stimulated by, our musts and have to do's and finances and where we live. And we forget ourselves in the process as to what do we actually want. And so, this came out of the dark room, is that every time I go there, I have a massive time to realign. And the first time I went, I really focused on my past. I really start looking in, who have I hurt? What interactions did I make? What is serving me? Who was I becoming through it? And then I start forgiving myself, because not everything I was proud of. There's all these things that I was like, man, I really didn't want to, do this relationship anymore. And then the second part of the dark room, I really spend on the future. I start thinking, what do I want? I love music, which is my passion. So I literally, when I walked out of there, I started learning how to produce and how to do music. My purpose was, teaching and lectures and how do I help others? And so that became my purpose, right? All made out of the dark room. And then the legacy in my life was, how do I make means with all of this and not be afraid of asking for funds for something that's helping so many? And so I had to, make all of these adjustments there. And what happens too is you clear out your pineal gland by about day 4 or 5, where you start producing massive doses of DMT naturally, as if you were on any sorts of psychedelic, trip. And so you actually start seeing lights everywhere. After about day 5, it's really weird. Your brain starts just showing you different, raises of light and orbs. And that's really interesting, because that's a lot of times, what people compare to ayahuasca or other, mystical healing modalities, or breath even. And so for me, it got all of these stages, right? The stage 1 is healing your physical body and just resetting from not eating any physical food is, 360% increase in your health if you just let go of digestion. Then it's my mind, which is always the hardest for me. The monkey brain just does not shut up until you figure out a way how to calm it down. So much to learn from our mental body. The emotions follow. So, the first time I went, I literally kept on seeing lamb chops everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I don't want to see these lamb chops anymore. And I couldn't get it out of my sight. And so what I've learned later, it was the emotional attachment to food is way worse than our physical attachment to food. and also our social structures, right? Like how we emotionally eat when we get stressed and beyond. So that was coming up for me. Then it opens you up psychically. Your senses, your sixth sense really starts getting heightened there. And you basically keep on getting these dumps of information, like insights, that maybe you've been looking for answers for a long time. But because we're always doing, we don't allow to hear. So that's really huge. And then, the most important thing is you get out of there and how do you implement it? And I think this is where I'm really good at. I don't wait. I don't waste time because I know if I hear something that needs to be adjusted, I got to do it now, not, 1 year from now when I forget about it.
Like, you're not allowed to have, because I know somebody, they were in it and they had a notebook, but they said they couldn't read their own writing because they were, they thought they were afraid they might lose it. But are you allowed actually bring in something that you can make notes, or is it better just have trust in yourself?
So it's actually hilarious because I can't read my handwriting even on the bright side. So I've tried before, not possible. I've been using this mental hack where I imagine different light colors. So for example, what I do is like, if it's something for my book or for my education, I imagine that it's a gold color and I just literally mentally put that pot into this gold bucket. So that's something that it really works. There's a lot of actually ways how you can bypass your subconscious mind. And when you visualize things that you're learning, you actually can store it and bring it on consciously back into your conscious mind. And this is something interesting, Jim Quick, if you ever...
Yeah, I've actually seen one on stage a few times.
Yeah, amazing. So I've learned this from him. So I kind of like use this exercise on how to store information. But I also, maybe I cheat a little bit, but I have this dictaphone that has no color, that has no lights. So it's all blacked out. And so I just I put my little voice.
How did you know you were not pressing delete instead of record?
I don't. Oh my gosh. So many times it happens too. And a lot of times, honestly, I don't even go through it as much. It's more just when you set the memory bank, you remember that much more because you have the initiative to want to teach it later to someone else.
And because obviously it's a dark room, how is your sleep pattern? Because you don't know when it's night and day. Is it that you go through a sleep, wake up for 2 hours and you go through that cycle, or is it like a normal day?
So what's funny and interesting is if I go there and I don't have enough time to adjust to the time zone, then I'm literally, my circadian rhythm is still on the all time zone. So I'm like, whenever, the body follows that. But after a few days, your body actually loses the circadian rhythm. It doesn't know anymore. You can't tell if it's day or night or morning. And you first 3-4 days, I always sleep a lot because we're just tired. Sometimes we just need a freaking rest. And that's like, I don't give that to myself in a regular life, right? So first few days, I'm just like, done and sleeping. The next few days, you start getting a lot of energy because you're not digesting. The entire time you go without pooping, like literally your body just stops needing to do that. So you will get all of this rush of energy, creativity, and almost agitation. So I actually do a lot of exercises. I do push-ups, I do jumps, I do as much movement because if you rest too much, you get really restless. So that's something interesting. And then because we're doing it with Jas Muhin is the gal that runs these. She's been doing it for 30 years, and she's a breatharian. She's solely nourished by prana, which is a concept that I couldn't comprehend at first until I had this experience with this. And so it's an initiation into how to be nourished solely by your own inner source of love, of golden creator substance, many different terms and names for this. But this thing is real, and it always takes me multiple weeks after to even feel the hunger again when I fall into the busy lifestyle. So that's really intriguing to me, how to convert into this, freedom, right? Like imagine you don't eat for a calories anymore. You only eat for pleasure, right? Pleasure is fine, but the need of it is what, makes us dependent.
And based on your experience with that, have you changed your eating patterns and kind of reduced the amount you eat?
For sure. So my diet has changed so much over the years. I always say less is more, and it became more of like a once a day a meal, and then liquid diet in between. So I found, being as liquid as possible is really serves me, because I can get as close to that energy level and as close to like not needing to sleep as much because of digestion as possible. But at the same time, I always ask my body, like, what do you need right now? Because you never want to go and use your mental energy on like the old ways or old pathways where you just like, I'm going to just be, fasting right now, or I'm just going to be eating, no meat or no dairy, because then you're blocking off again the signal what the body actually needs. And so I really speak to my body as to what is required from you today to perform at your optimal level. And so it's like coding computer. I constantly do these mental codes, mental adjustments that then help me get the right feedback that I'm looking for, that is not based on my agenda of my mind, but it's based on my highest good.
Makes sense. And with the plant medicine, then I'd like to know kind of your own journey, and then with the events you're organizing, is that something that you kind of encourage people to do?
I wouldn't say I encourage. So I went through a huge, I think, search in that myself. So I've done ibogaine in South Africa. I've done many ayahuascas in Peru, in Colombia, in Brazil, and I've also done peyote, San Pedro. I mean, I'm that type of person that when I find some sort of healing or solution, I'm gonna immerse myself all the way and figure all of this out. But it's funny, it had huge. It was a huge catalyst of opening and understanding what's possible for me. But at the same time, with, again, our world being so deceptive, I start also misusing it and start using it in the ways of justifying it, for doing it for the spiritual reasons, but yet totally taking myself further away from myself. And so, now I very, very rarely take any psychedelics, because I found love within, and I found it through breath. I mean, breath can be very psychedelic. Like if you do a right session, which I'm happy that we can gift like a whole library to your audience, so people have access to these sessions for free. So that way you can actually feel what I'm talking about, because I think that's the best way to do it, not hear it from me. And so really, I've had a great openings with it. I can't say anything bad, but I would never do it in a group. I would never do it with a random commercial shaman or person, because the level of responsibility that this person has over you is way bigger than we think. Because the amount of darkness that can also step inside you while you are this exposed, and I've seen this, what happens to people and others, it can damage you more than good. But again, right, like you might be dealing with a massive breakthrough you need to have, and nothing else is working, right? There might be, you can't judge anything or anyone, but to really ask, is my heart ready? And not the mind, because of your neighbors have done it 15 times, but the heart, right? Like that's really important discernment. And when I do discernment, I ask myself, what would love do now? Is this information and experience limited, or is it limitless? Because if your body will tell you, just ask these questions. Is this gonna enrich me over and help me in my spiritual path and growth? Or is this gonna, do the opposite? And then just feel into it. Maybe you do muscle testing. Maybe you start really just meditating on these questions in your journal, so that way you can make your own assessment as to what works for you or what doesn't.
Excellent. You're big into the biohacking, but like I was looking at the different things that you've got, and one is the EMFs. And I've seen, like the different things, the wallpaper, I wasn't aware that. I've heard of paint, all right. But I mean, like I've got the device which basically tells you the frequencies, and like one thing that I do is I make sure all the lamps are plugged out because it's in the wire. And I think it's being kind of conscious of the bad energy fields as well, because I think you actually have a device as well for checking that. And you might just touch on the EMFs because, like, let's assume somebody hasn't a clue what it's about. So you might the dangers on what exactly it is.
No, absolutely. It's funny. So everything that we have is all integrated within the things that we teach, because in my path, I continue to search for different natural technologies that can actually help us. And so in that, I'm always looking for consciousness expansion, like how do we expand, which we do through light therapy, red light, vibroacoustics. We have all of these different tools that we know that have been proven for time after time. And then when it comes to frequencies, it's funny how I got into this. I didn't really believe in electromagnetic frequencies or understood it until COVID. And I lived in Houston for a short period of time, and it was right when COVID happened. But also in the same time, they rolled out 5G towers, all across the globe. And what was interesting is, I start having issues with sleep, with insomnia. I would start having depression, mild depression feelings, and something just wasn't right. And I was like, oh boy, like after all of this healing, all of this biohacking, like I literally do everything in the bookmark and I'm now going to start feeling bad again. So it was really like, honestly, it just made me mad, right? Like you're doing all of this stuff and you don't feel good. And then, something told me was like, look into EMFs. And in biohacking, a lot of biohackers talk about it. EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency. And essentially, there is man-made EMF, and then there is natural EMF, which we've been exposed to forever. We can totally handle. This is things like radiation from the sun. And the man-made ones are ionizing and non-ionizing. And some of the ones that we've always known is X-rays, right? Like we know that X-rays or microwaves are harmful to us. But the other ones that have been hidden from us, especially by telecommunication companies, and I can say this for a fact because we know, in this process, I went on this huge hunt and research, like what is it? How does it work? Because what I've learned is it's the cell phones, the Bluetooth, cell phone towers, Wi-Fi, smart appliances, electric cars, anything that emits essentially these frequencies is not just disturbing us, but for many, it's detrimental to our health. Now, they're invisible, so this is why it's so hard to put an eye on this. And it's similar to cigarettes. In 1950s, cigarettes were pushed by doctors that it's this great thing for us and that it's healthy for us. Like it was literally that ridiculous. And if you Google are EMFs harmful today, it will tell you there is no evidence that they're harmful. And it's a total lie. So when we went on the PubMed, there's over 6,000 studies proving that it's detrimental to our health. And whatever it's Alzheimer's, it's autoimmune issues, it's sleep, it's chronic pain. It's literally involved with so many things that we're seeing now that we did not see, in 70s or 60s when there wasn't this immense amount of EMF. So it obviously starts making sense. And what happened in this process is I've learned that there's about 3% of the world that are electro-hypersensitive. These people cannot handle any sorts of frequencies. They literally cannot hold cell phones. And these are some of the main customers that come to us constantly because we have solution for this. Then you've got about 35% of the population that are sensitive, mildly, semi-mildly sensitive, which means you get headache, you get pain, you can't sleep. And so that's where I fall into. So that's in this process, I was like, that's exactly the symptoms that I have. And then the rest of the population, everyone is sensitive. So no matter who you are, it's not that you're not sensitive. It's just matter of time how much you can take and how much you feel the effects today. Because just like cigarettes, it may take 5, 10, 15 years of exposing yourself to it before something in your DNA or in your body starts, not being able to repair, essentially. And so just like toxins, more, we are around EMFs, which for me was downtown Houston, right? Like dense city, high rises, concrete jungle, no earth. That's when I literally start seeing the difference, where I constantly would want to leave town. I would constantly want to be in nature naturally without any explanation. And what it was is my body wanted to discharge all the EMF. My body wanted to get out of this, immense, amounts. So in this process, I ended up learning how do we mitigate? What do we do about this? How do we also depolarize this, which is a term from a Greek scientist. Depolarization is something that renaturalizes. It's a technology that renaturalizes harmful EMF back into its natural state. And that's the protocol that we use today. And that's what we have. And I think if anybody wants to learn more about just EMFs in general, I think the best way to start from somebody that, is not scientist, not a doctor, it's not who I am. It's just from someone that is an avid seeker of truth. I put all of the searchings into a webinar. It's 50-minute long, and you can just, make your own mind based on the evidence that we found.
I mean, I had a guy on the show, the Awakening show, that worked with telecom, expose that. I've spoke to military experts that send me some of the stuff. And the scary thing is a lot of women that are pregnant, they have the phones because they're just scrolling. And apparently the eggs of the female, there's 400 or something like that they're born with that. I didn't know that at the time, but when they get damaged, they can't be repaired. And, and this is all orchestrated. It's going around. So the fact that there's ways of doing it, and just, you mentioned the electric cars. I seen recently people charging them. The guy was using the meter. It was scary. The levels were so dangerous. And it's frightening. And just on the microwaves, because unfortunately I was dumb enough when I was younger to be eating loads of meals from microwave. As soon as I found out about that, I've never ever touched one again. But I started telling people about it. I said, put a phone inside it and actually get your friend to ring you. They all leak. And when you see that, it shouldn't ring. It should be sealed. And so yeah.
No, it's crazy. And you know what's also crazy is the amount of countries that are aware of this. So by the way, EMFs are classified as a carcinogen based on the World Health Organization. It's also EHS, electrohypersensitivity. That's a medical term. And what's really interesting is China, the pregnant women are required by law to wear these belts that protect you from EMF. And we keep on talking shit about China, but look at they protect their own children because they understand the importance of them.
And Russia, they don't have 5G. I mean, I was like, oh, that can't be right.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So they know it and they stopped it. Where it's rolled out in Poland. Yeah, when everything was in lockdown, it's oh, so that's major where they're installing all these 5G towers.
Wow. Yeah, and France banned iPhone 12. That was pretty recent. And Chicago Tribune is an interesting. They did a independent study on their TV with cell phones, and 9 out of 10 cell phones were way over the healthy limit to our body. And there is a way you can even see it in your settings on your iPhone that it literally tells you, do not bring your cell phone on your ear because it causes cancer. Like the cell phone companies are putting it in because they're protecting their own interests, but publicly none of this you can find. You have to search for it.
And the same with the AirPods. There was a guy done a test on that, and it's showing that the frequencies going from one ear to the other and down to the phone, not that they're both going from the ears down to the phone. And I was like, it's just frightening, and they know these things. So I think the most important thing is, with like everything you're doing, you have to look after yourself and start learning. And I love the way that you're actually sharing a lot of the stuff. And it's like you're not you're kind of looking at science stuff as well. Like, you meant the med website as well, because I mean, we've been all duped with follow the science, but there's a different science. There's the science where they've been paid for to say exactly what they want, and there's true science. And I can just see from a lot of the things that you're doing, it's not the paid scientists, people that have actually reported why this is safe and why you're doing the different things.
Yeah, so you know what's interesting? The telecommunication companies, they use 220-pound men, which is only 3% of the population, for all of their studies. And most of the studies on the safety has been done in 90s, or some of them are still from the 70s, before the levels of cell phones were even invented to this point. And so that's another scary part, is that we're listening to science, A, paid by telecommunication company, but B, being so outdated that, they used it for the old Motorola's that you literally had, you had a several centimeters distance when you were wearing them on your belts. And so that's, by the way, how to protect yourself. Number one rule is distance. Don't ever have your phone on your ear, put it on a speaker outside of you, or use a different covers. I use different shielding covers around my phone and computer, so that way it doesn't go and penetrate through your body. When I travel or fly, I literally wear EMF clothing that's made up of silver, so that way it doesn't go through my body. When it comes to Bluetooth, use it as little as possible, or don't use it at all, ideally. If you don't need to use your phone, put it on an airplane. There's no point for the towers to keep on searching for you. And, interesting thing about 5G, you can turn it off on your phone. You don't have to use 5G. It works the same speed if you just keep LTE. And essentially, if you do have a 5G, and let's say that you are underground parking, you are putting about up to 7 different towers shooting beams and finding you at the same time. So lower the signal, more intense the radiation towards you. So that's why, like, if you have a full, 4 or 5 bars, whatever the number is, you're less of a chance, right? Like, it's not keeps on pounding through you, versus if it keeps on searching, right, for signal. The other thing is turn off your Wi-Fi at night. So we have it on a timer where it turns off at 10 till 5. So that way again, it doesn't mess with our sleep. Don't use smart anything. Like, smart appliances are like so unnecessary. Like, they're pushing all of this, smart cities and smart this, smart that. It's the dumbest thing that has ever been invented. It's never been created on our health. And how freaking connected do you actually have to be? Like, how ridiculous to have an app for every device. Like, we've been just fine up until today. And the other part is children. There's no safety limit when it comes to kids. So this is a really interesting thing, because their skulls are much smaller. And so there's no protection like from an adult skull. And so, obviously, if you have them on iPads, cover the iPads with things. You also want to look at the light therapy. So I changed the setting into a red light on an iPad or iPhone, especially at night, because it disrupts their sleep, which is a whole nother issue in general. And I mean, if you can go back to books, good old books are amazing. Like, I really try to practice with my kids that, at night, instead of watching TV, we go and we play, we meditate. I play meditations for them. They ask me about life. And I really, you have to make yourself to do it, but it will really heal your relationship and connection to your children, ultimately, that are screaming for our attention in this world, because how much technology has been, stealing it away from one another.
I recently got my son the dartboard. We're playing darts, but we always do sport and everything. And I think so many times people, they want the easy way out in life, and they just kind of go, yeah, I'll do my thing, you do your thing. And it's like, shame on the parents for doing that, because like, they're watching you. If you're on your phone all the time, how can you tell your son stop being on the phone, or your daughter? You just can't do that. And you kind of have to set the example. And what I've noticed is, if you're looking to play the Uno games and the different things, your child will love it, because most people, they don't want to spend the time to do that. And so if you are concerned about your child being on social media, do things with them and it'll stop immediately.
No, absolutely. And also remember, so the instant presence, I actually teach my kids this, because we would be surprised how many kids have anxiety, social anxiety. And, the minute that you extend your consciousness out, whatever it's scrolling on your phone, if it's email, computer, if it's, whatever we're doing, right? Like, as long as it's on the outside, watch yourself, what happens. You first lose yourself, like your sense of self. So your body's awareness gets to be tensed up. The second thing is you stop breathing properly. So then you're putting your body into fight or flight, because it's thinking I am not being, comforted, right? I'm not being in a peaceful state of breath. And so again, technology is awesome, right? Like, I'm not talking against it. It's helped us so much in this life and will continue helping us, but it's the hygiene, it's the tech hygiene that we use that doesn't just help you physically, it really helps you tremendously mentally, emotionally, relationally. Our quality of relationships come back, when we don't look at our phones at the homes. And it goes down to addictions. We've become addicted to it. Like, I've been on this role, of getting rid of any of my addictions, so to speak. And what I mean by it, I don't mean this like being an, alcoholic or like that extreme. It's actually way worse than we think. We're so addicted to the simple comforting things in life that we, it could be as simple as my little one beer at night, or it could be, 2-3 coffees a day. But it becomes subtly stronger and stronger. And our mind, the way our mind survives is it keeps on having these leeches on all of these, needs and haves and musts. And so part of my process of unhooking is also, taking days at a time off of all these substances. So that way, there is a simple question, does this substance own you, or do you own it? And I can guarantee you, go without your phone for 4 or 5 days and see what happens. Go without coffee for 7 days, see what happens. Or whatever your dirty pleasure, or doesn't even have to be dirty, just any pleasures. See if you can go against it for a little bit or without it. So that way you can gain the power and awareness and energy back into you. So it's not owning you.
Yeah. And so now you mentioned the beer there, and I remember I had a guest on, and she was calling it grey drinking. So it's like sometimes people think, oh, I don't have a problem. I don't get drunk. I just have like the casual 1 or 2 beers, the 2 glasses of wine, and that's grey drinking. And like, I was guilty of that. And I just kind of, I'll go, all right, I'm giving up for 6 weeks or whatever, and it's no problem to me. And then what I find is you never go back to the same kind of cycle, and you're just so conscious of it. But it's so easy to fall into that, and it's like the same with the coffee, so we have to be careful of that. So just kind of finally, I want to touch on 2 things. One is the wallpaper that you've got, because I hadn't seen it before. As I mentioned, I heard of the paint, but why I know it's so good to have something like that is I had heard, like, a lot of the lights now, unfortunately, people don't even realize it, but they're putting the 5Gs into it. And I've heard that even cockpits, where they're located, that it's a massive for that. And like, people don't even know these things. They just assume that they've just been unlucky. And like, or else they're near a tower or a transmitter. So basically they can put the wallpaper of that to protect them from the frequencies that are being blasted into.
Yeah, so I guess wallpaper or paint, but so there it depends, like, what level of protection do you want? Because there is that fairy tale cage, right, where you can completely create, EMF free zone.
Wait, just on that, because I mean, I don't know, but what I've heard is that can actually be worth it, because if you're kind of closing it in, then they can be bouncing around the bad frequencies that you're not letting them out. So I don't know, so maybe you can touch on that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because, even some people say like let's say that you have EMF clothing, right? And then you have your face covered, then it all concentrates in your face. So I think there's quite a few things that we don't fully know. And what I've learned in this process is, step 1 is just eliminate as much of it as you don't need, right? So that's like Bluetooth, that's like smart appliances, That's like turning off the Wi-Fi, like just eliminate that as much as possible. That's like the free way of doing it, right? Then the second way is looking at all of your personalized stuff. So that's your cell phones, computers, and put it into cases that are proven to block it, right? So that way you're not sending that signal out. And then the other part is obviously your neighbors, right? And I think that's what you mean is like, you may be in an apartment complex, right? And maybe there is 20 apartments around you, and you're picking up on a solid 15 different Wi-Fis, right? So there's a lot of, there's no consent, right? And one thing that we didn't even touch up on is satellites. Imagine we're carpeting satellites all around the earth right now, whatever it's Tesla, Amazon, and beyond, or Tesla guy, Elon. And essentially, what's happening is, again, there's no consent, right? That they're sending all of these signals through us. Now, frequency and has been used since the Hitler age, right? Like there was we know that certain frequencies disrupt us. We know that this happens in animals. This happens in nature. We see this, right? Like as soon as we put towers around, that this has a huge impact, but nobody's doing anything about it. And so when it comes to just like sheltering yourself, you could have this little cage around your bed. So when you sleep, that's I think the most important time, because one of the biggest health issues that it brings is a disruptive sleep. But what I found is something called Key Shield technology from Waveguard, and it works on a depolarization. So essentially, instead of you having to shield everything and close everything, it takes the EMFs and it renaturalizes them. So that way you can still use your cell phone, you can still use your computers at house. Because if you did a complete shielding or a complete, fairy tale cage, then you cannot use technology. So that's kind of where the offset is. And this one works up to 90% of it. So you still have some, you have about 10%, but it's so limited compared to the exposure that it's actually still within the safety limits of our human biology.
And is this Shangite or Shanlite? There's supposed to be some kind of stone that's supposed to be good. Is that true? Because the problem is I've seen so many different cases where they're offering loads of different devices and then somebody would debunk it. And like, it's very hard to decipher what is true and what is not.
Yeah. So, when it comes to the natural stuff, so, we have some hope. I have never had a physical difference. So besides the measuring part, right? Like for me, when I got into this, it was a feeling of not being able to sleep. And it was a feeling iffy and agitated, not sure what's going on. That was gone when I start introducing this technology, right? So like for me, like I don't even care at that point whatever the science says. I was like, I feel good and I can sleep, and that's what I cared about. Now, did these shun guides do that for me? Like it didn't. Like I never felt any difference, and I wonder if you need way bigger. It's like you need so much more for the technology that we're exposed to work. Because we also have to think about, right? Like if you see the amount of man-made impact we're making, like the nature in a lot of ways can't even keep up with this, right? So we really have to give the equal strength to what we're sending. Because I never had the issues that strongly until 5G. So like I was okay around regular Wi-Fi, I was okay around radios. Because again, remember, it's like how much your body can take, right? There's a cap to this before it starts giving you signals like something is wrong. So I really think, with the amount of progress in technology, there needs to be an amount of offsetting technology to help us sustain healthy, life.
And just finally, I think it's HEAL, HEAL, the capsule that you have. So I was looking at that, and then I saw some videos, and it looked kind of fascinating that you've the frequencies in the titanium ball, I believe. So you may just touch on that and what exactly it's doing for people.
Yeah, totally. So if you think about technologies, this one, what's interesting about Lila, quantum, it works on a quantum energy. So it actually doesn't just, it's a side effect that it helps with EMF, but it primarily helps you align your consciousness level to a higher, state of being. And it's all based on the quantum physics, how this technology works. And essentially, it harmonizes your body, your biofields, to become more adapted to these, other harmful technologies that are out there. Now, what's interesting, so that one is a personalized device that you want to wear long enough time for your body field to adjust. And this is, I think it's like over 50 studies now that actually show the efficacy of what this does. It's pretty incredible to see that. Now, this doesn't really work with the environment. So this is why, like, I look at it when it comes to EMF, you've got the personal protection, right? Stuff like cell phones. Then you've got your own body, right? And then you've got environment around you to look after. So that's kind of just how you discern it, that this is a personal device versus you have the environmental parts, so that way you can also offset other neighbors around you. And just like kind of with anything, it's also a lot of it is mental, right? Like being able to understand, like healing, for example. But the biggest thing that the heal does, it harmonizes your energy. It brings you back into your more natural state within, and it all works on your nervous system ultimately, right? So like when we were discussing like our fight or flight, and our nervous system just keeps on fighting something, this helps you just calm it down, helps you allow to be in that natural state instead of fight and flight.
Pavel, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You might let people know where they can find you.
Absolutely. So it's noaaon.com, noaaon.com. And we'll add into the show notes, if possible, we'll have a links with the free stuff. So we'll share with you our on-demand library and webinar. So that way you can, check it out and see if you can commit yourself, one session per day, first hour of the day, the golden hour. And it doesn't have to be our session, but just spend it on yourself. Like make sure that you start the day with you, because I think if there's one message that I can really give today is come back to your center, come back to yourself, stop living somebody else's life.
Beautiful. Excellent. I'm not sure I put the link along with all your socials, because we've got some, fantastic followers on the thing. So good information. So I put them all both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Pavel.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So nice to meet you.
Thank you. So that's all for the Meditation Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. Be sure to share with your friends, because there's plenty of advice here for health, and a lot of people would benefit from it. And comment on the show as well if it's on Facebook, because it helps the algorithms. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends, because it really helps. Until next week, take care.